What's up, YouTubers? This is Dirk coming at you with another Mini Cooper video. So in the recent past, we've had to take the transmission apart twice. But once we put all the transmission back together, it sounded like we had a vacuum leak. And after doing a lot more research, long story short, we have determined it's time for the infamous intake valve cleaning. I'm going to post some pictures up here on the screen in a direct injection engine. You've got your intake manifold and your exhaust manifold. The gasoline never touches the valves and it doesn't clean them, so you get a huge carbon buildup like some of these pictures you're seeing now. And this car has about 83,000 miles on it. I venture to say it's never been cleaned, so these intake valves should be pretty nasty. As well, we've got some spark plugs to replace. If you look up on the internet, you'll see a whole bunch of forums dedicated to this problem with Mini Coopers. So there's well-documented Gen 1 issues. This is Gen 2. If you take this to a dealership to do an intake valve cleaning, they use walnut shells, right? Walnut shell cleaning. And it's about $700 to $1,000 depending on where you go. Nobody wants to work on Mini Coopers because the engines are tight and everything's plastic, so I don't blame them. But this was 25 bucks at Harbor Freight for a 25-pound box. This was $29 for a little hopper that you pour the walnut shells into, and it's just a siphon. I will note that when you buy this, it's going to be super kinked. Cut it, pull it off, and then put on a new one. I think it would restrict the flow a little bit if it were if you were to leave it like it comes out of the box. And then this is where the fun begins, is it comes with a handle, a trigger, but there's a little ceramic tip in the end, which doesn't work for blasting out the walnut shells like you need. This, of course, just hooks up right there in the siphon tube, air compressor siphon tube. All right, what you're gonna wanna do is I got mine at Home Depot, and get a 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch and a 1/2 inch to an 1/8 inch little brass pipe and hose barb. Okay, the hose barb is this piece right here, and it goes all the way in and basically stops just before. I'll turn the light on here, show you inside. Okay, so this is just a barb fitting. I put a little bit of silicone on there and really had to get a hammer to crank this down inside. It does not go in easily. I got the 1/2 inch to an 1/8 inch step down because when you buy a little Harbor Freight, when you buy a little 2-foot blowgun from Harbor Freight, this is in the tip, and the idea was to put this in that, and then that in there. Okay, however, there's something called the Venturi effect. So you could see inside the hose, there's the, I'll put an arrow on the screen here with the part I'm talking to. That is where the air compressor feed goes in, and then of course we're staring down the siphon tube hose. So if you push, or if you don't have this, the feed hose, that 2-foot aluminum feed hose in just the right spot, when you go to squeeze the trigger, right? When you go to squeeze the trigger, if it's out here, the gapping, the spacing doesn't work. So you put this in. I put a little Sharpie on there. Before you put the barbed attachment in, you can just put this through there and see, or with a strong light, you can put this down there and see right where it should be. You can look down here and see, but basically this is 0.2 inches. I got my caliper and measured, and on all the forums, that's what they said works. So we're gonna be testing that when we do this job. But I'm gonna take electrical tape and basically hold that in place. But as you can see, there's not a lot of wiggle room. I opted to not have to drill that out, okay? Plus, I would have to fill in those holes right there. So we're just not gonna use that part. We're gonna put this straight in there, but I'm gonna wait until I actually get my intake manifold off so I can measure where I need to cut this. I do have my pipe bender, and I was testing it here on this one, and BMW makes a $70 and a $30 part where you just clip this right onto the intake valve, or this end goes onto your shop vac, and then I drilled a hole for that aluminum rod to go through, and that just slips on there, and that's it. Right now what we're gonna do, I'm just gonna get the car up on jack stands, just this one corner. We're gonna take the passenger front wheel off. I'm gonna take that fender liner out because it'll be easier to get to the crankcase pulley bolt where I can be tightening it and it's moving the pistons up and down. This is 4 valves. These two are the same, and those two are the same. So I'll be putting a little barbecue skewer or screwdriver down there where it's touching the top of the piston head, crank the crankcase bolt, and then watch those skewers go up and down, and then just stop when it's at top dead center. But the goal is to get to that 18 millimeter crankshaft bolt. So that bolt right there is what we'll be turning by hand. Okay, top side, of course, you're gonna wanna disconnect your negative terminal because you have the starter right underneath all this. What we need to do is disconnect the hose, 1, 2, 3, these T25 Torx screws. And of course, I'm gonna loosen, I think this is a 7, yeah. Just loosen the air box here. Go ahead and start taking all this apart to be able to get to the intake manifold, which is underneath the air filter here. Hopefully you can see that one sensor here. Okay, set that aside. Oh, there's one more right there, sorry. Take that off. There's a little grommet. Be careful not to lose these rubber grommets. And then twist it forward. I'm gonna take this out just so I don't get it dirty. So there's a hose, plastic hose that goes all the way to the front of the grill there out of the camera. This is a pain in the butt to get in there, but I'm trying to turning this to where it's almost free. Just trying, it needs to release so I can take it out. I do not want to have to, okay. Oh my gosh. Oh. So that's a pain in the butt. There's only a few spots that can go in and out. All right, just disconnect this electrical connection at the top center of the manifold. I'm gonna need to disconnect this hose. I've tried to do this hose several times. I can take this whole hose clamp off and it just will not come off. I know I can disconnect it right here. And then there's 5 right here. There's little studs. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the 5th one's right back here. 5 of these. You have to get a deep 13 millimeter socket. These are the studs that the intake manifold gets on. And then once we remove that, there's going to be a few more parts underneath it. Just take a 13 deep. Let's get in here and kind of break it free. Okay, I've removed all 5 nuts from the studs. There's underneath this point in the car here, there is what I think what they call like a knee brace or something. It's very hard to reach from the top side, so I'll get this out and then show you a little better detail. Okay, now that I'm out from underneath the car, this is the 10 millimeter bolt that you're gonna wanna pull out. I'll show you where it was. I used a magnet. It was very helpful. And then I had, it broke free very easily, but this was just enough big extension, stepping it down, extension, universal joint on a 10 millimeter. What a pain in the butt. But it was right there. You see the hole. There you go. Okay, now keep in mind, what was on this hose here is now in the way. So this is why I was doing my best to, boy, I think it's super inconvenient. I can't get that little joint off there, but once you remove this now, I could put my finger inside the intake, valve holes. I'll be taping them off. Just be very careful right now that nothing drops inside, because I don't know yet if my valves are top dead center or not, so something could fall through. So just be really careful not to, you could get a paper towel or rag. In fact, even just while it's cracked this much, I'm just gonna get some tape and kind of cover it because I don't want any kind of little metal shaving or fleck to go down. Okay, well, now that I've done it once, I can say it's not that bad, but it's also not that easy, right? So it's gonna be sitting like this, okay? I disconnected that hose from right here, but we actually just spun it. I still couldn't get it off, but I broke it free enough to where we could just rotate it out of the way. I did disconnect that just so no sensors are in the way. I will tell you that if you disconnect it right here or even right there, it will be easier. But once you take it off, okay, I'll get my camera in a second here, but there's these two where you just have to pull a piece of rubber off of it, pull it off of it. And then there's a little hose that connects right here. And then this one was a pain, the throttle body sensor, because you have to kind of pull this off and then somehow get your hands down there. I ended up using my pick and just kind of pulled the electrical or the plastic tab on the sensor that clips in. Pushing it in will be super simple, but right now we're going to take this off and look at the butterfly valve on the throttle body and see how gunked up it is. Also, right here, this was connected into there, and you can, this is what went on the very, very top of the manifold. So with that connected in like that, you can move it out of the way, but with that big old downpipe sitting right there was difficult. Okay, this right here, I'm blocking the light a little bit. Right there on the tip of my thumb is the groove that went into. And same thing right there on my thumb. There's a little groove inside the rubber. Those are the two joints that slide on. This was the hose that clipped on, and it's tight in there. I did have to slide this little clip, whatever those are called. It just slid off of the manifold. Okay, and now my son has already put, I know you can't see much, but he's already put tape over the intake manifold hole so that nothing falls in, because this is what ours looks like on the N18. Okay, I held on to this with my needle nose pliers, took my razor and cut both of these off. This little cover just pops off, and it's just holding the wire harness in place. And then you come out, and now these boots, I have to pry those up a little bit. The ignition coils, right, these boots will come up. So again, if you just pull that up, it ejects it, but now there's no room for it to go off. I'm trying to show you a little bit better on this one. So again, pull it up, and then you just push it, and it like spits it out. But you're gonna need to break that one, and then making sure you don't cut a wire. Doing this with one hand, so it's a little harder. Here, film me, buddy. And then right here, same thing. And now, then you break it. Man, yeah, obviously it's not. Boy, that other one came off a little bit easier, if I'm being honest. Just gonna get my screwdriver underneath there. Jeez. Does BMW make anything that's not plastic? There we go, broke that. Maybe. See it. Okay, that won't bother anything. My arm's in the way here. Holy cow. I'm sure there's a tool out there. There we go. You just kind of have to pop it free. I guess maybe you had to, I don't know, something with that. And now, okay, there's room for these wires to lift up and get those off. Okay, I did write 1, 2, 3, 4 on the wiring, just in case. And then on the ignition coil or boot, whatever you call it, I wrote it also. They all look good, but these are awfully hard. I don't want to break this plastic tab off or that. I'm just trying to twist it gently, and you'll see it moves. So I'm kind of breaking that little seal in there. And then I probably picked the hardest one to film, because the hose going from the PCV valve into the oil catch can. Trying to just get my fingers. There you go, and you'll hear a little sound. but I don't see any. There's the old, looks like old dielectric grease. All right, that's number 4. Okay, now I'm going to take a spark plug socket and get all 4 of these out so that I can see which ones are top dead center. I just have my, this is a 14 millimeter deep. I am just, this does not feel good. It was a little rough taking those threads out. It's probably done. That's a decently bad spark plug. Wow. You can see the burning up there on the tip. You can see how if you could hear that, it's like grinding. And then once, I'm just going nice and soft, but you'll feel it when it finally comes loose. Wow, look how burnt that tip is. Okay, you've got your throttle body that goes, when it goes up against here. You just have to, that will be down. Make sure this white tab is pulled up, and you can pull your throttle body off. Before that, be careful, you don't want to pay for that. All right, it was really stuck on there. So I got some PB Blaster and just squirted into a tiny little spot, and then by then I was able to rotate it around and it just slid right off. I fought that for a long time. It's pretty dirty, more so into these actual intake valve areas, and we did peek back there. I'll get a picture up here on the screen, try to get one of all the valves, but they are terrible. This is a really good time to be doing this. When you've got this little butterfly valve here, you'll notice it'll naturally close on itself there. So however you want to do this, if you just want to kind of hold it back with one finger and then get in there and clean, you can get carb cleaner or just gas and a toothbrush. Just don't use brake fluid or brake cleaner. Certainly don't use brake fluid. This is all plastic, even though it's hard, so I wouldn't put any kind of solvent on here that could possibly erode the plastic, but as you can see, that's plenty clean for there to be a clean seal. Okay, once that is done, I've also kind of wiped this down. There's not really anything in here, if I'm being honest. Just a note on these gaskets. These gaskets look good. I don't see any damage. You can get a new one if you want, but they're all going to look like this. So I'm just going to reuse these. If yours look bad, maybe replace them. But okay, so we've already done 2 valves. I'm going to kind of clean up the second one here. I'm just trying to show you. This is a very persnickety process. All right, this is how I had to completely redo this block of wood, and then that snugs right in there just perfect. And of course, you stick it through. But this is exactly how long I needed it to be. So a couple of things to note here, right? You have to have the shot back going. I'm gonna have my son hold it while I do it, but basically get the shot back going, turn on, or put the nozzle into the shot back, get it all the way in, and then start squeezing it. And the second you squeeze it, the siphon will continue to pull the walnut media out. We've already done a lot, and there's a ton in there still. That's what you want. If that thing is half empty, then your Venturi effect inside your spray nozzle is way off. So I will tell you, we're stopping occasionally and sucking up a few things, but you're gonna have little walnut shell pieces, like that up in there that get blasted. So at the very end, we'll just blow it all off, and it's not gonna hurt anything. We've already plugged up everything that we need to. And you can see my tape there on the backside, except for where we're open for business. Get it ready. And when you're done blasting, you can only do it for about 15 seconds because there'll be a puddle of walnut shells in the back of the intake valve. So you're gonna have to stop it and then put this in and kind of blast it all around to get rid of it. All right, so nothing will happen right now when I plug this in, except for that nasty high-pitched noise. Sorry. So, okay, on, Matthew. Start it. into the hole. Right? And now you squeeze it when you're ready. So if you want it clean closer to the back, wait till it's in the back and then push the trigger. If you want it clean up front, now press it. But the second you press it, it's going to fill it full of walnut shells. Okay, trigger off. Take that out. Go in. That first blast out, it's okay to do this. See, and I'm just putting a little bit in there because I can't get all the way through, right? I need it to be like that. This will at least blast the majority out. And then I'm just giving it little bits, I'm not all the way. Once you don't see it jumping back at you, you can press it all the way. Cleaning that up, kill it. Stop it there. So we're just gonna do that as many times as you want. Take a flashlight. This is your really expensive fluoroscope right here. I just kind of zoom in, and I'm gonna get my flashlight on. There you go. You see my screen? So I can see it really clearly. In case you can't tell, that looks really, really good. There's a few little pieces of that walnut down there, but I'll get that. So that's amazing, and that was 3 times cleaning it all out. All right, just rinse and repeat on all 4. Okay, the throttle body sensor here, this is gonna sit like that inside. Okay, so if you recall, first thing I did was take that off, and then you have these, there's 3 Torx screws, bolts, fasteners, whatever to take out. And then we had the actual butterfly valve of the throttle body sensor here. So reverse operation. It was pretty rough a second ago, and then it just stopped. Oh, there we go.